Good morning, early bird.
Good, good morning. Well, you were earlier than me.
Well, not quite. Either
Really?
that or we landed at the same time.
Yeah, that could be. So Dara's off and away.
Dara's back in beautiful, warm Phoenix. Too damn warm for me.
Too damn warm for anybody,
I
probably.
know.
What about
That's why
Doug?
they stay inside. Unless
Yeah,
she's
Air
swimming.
conditioning.
She does swim.
she goes out to swim, David. And but the other day, Liz told me it was actually so hot, even swimming, even when she got
Yes.
out of
That
school.
one time, it was way too hot even to be in the pool.
God. We were in Lake Havasu, right? Is that Arizona? Yeah, that's Arizona. Lake Havasu.
Yeah.
And it was 100, something like that. And
It was 110.
it was 110? No,
It
no,
could
it
have
was,
been. It's been 110 there for a month.
it could have been, but this was years and years ago. This was like,
It was
what year was it?
It was 110.
All right,
I remember
110.
on the way there. Remember, I got up in the middle of the desert because there's a
Oh,
gas
yeah.
station that says
Yeah,
no services next,
100 miles, I know, yeah.
And I remember I got out of the car just to see what it felt like.
Uh,
I was knocked down. I was physically knocked down. It
By-
was like a blast furnace.
Yeah, it was like going into a furnace. I remember. Anyway, we couldn't go. I mean, I remember there was a pool at the place we were staying, and I took off my shoes or something. I couldn't walk with my bare feet on the cement because it was like burning. It was like
Yes.
cold.
Yes.
It was like coals.
That, if you have a pet, if you're taking a dog for a walk in that kind, I'm telling you, you got to keep the dog off the cement,
Yeah,
off the blacktop, or in the grass. And even
right,
it's hot.
right. Because the cement just like heats up like a. You can fry an egg on it. That's what they told us.
Absolutely.
Fry an egg.
Absolutely. That is Phoenix. Hi, Sam.
Wonderful city.
It was okay.
Everybody wants to live in Las Vegas. You think the climate's a lot better there?
They don't want to live. Well, not
Good
anymore.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Sam. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam.
Morning.
I think I'd like to live someplace in dreamland where it's like 75 during the day, 55 at night.
Well, that's where we just came from. We have a place where we go in the summer, for time in Colorado in the mountains.
Ah, yes.
Nice.
There's your dream. There's your dream place right there.
That's true. That's true.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Where in Colorado is your place?
We run in Vail area.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we just got back. We just got back about a few days ago, and it was a great experience. Great experience.
Yes. And good weather.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
So you are back in Chicago?
Only for a day. We got to go to New York tomorrow to visit the new grandchild.
Beautiful.
And how's your dad doing? How's your dad doing?
He's doing okay. I got to spend a week with him in Milwaukee. He wanted to go to Milwaukee they're selling the house. So he wanted to go back to Milwaukee, and I was his caregiver for the week a couple weeks ago. So that was very good.
I wish him well.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen.
Good to see everybody. I'm using my phone today. Okay. somehow got into the wrong place. Question is how to get out of this wrong place. Let's see. Let's take us back. Some kind of problem here getting to Sefer HaMitzvot. Let's see, Rambam. So for some reason, when I go to Sifrei Mitzvot, it won't, it's not a link I can click on. I'm going to try something else, a different text. We will not use the Safari one. Try something else. I'm very grateful.
Should we take the 3 weeks quiz?
10 facts you should know about Keynote. Let's see. This is just funny. Every time I'm trying to get to what we're supposed to do, some little technical thing gets in the way. There we go. Okay. The 17th prohibition is that we are forbidden to love the Macy's or agree with him. So in our list related to idolatry, we've gone through all manner of prohibitions. We talked about someone who is missionizing another person in order to follow idolatry. So although we are commanded to love every Jew, and there's all manner of mitzvos in that sort of galaxy of loving another Jew, they do not apply to this person. It actually says, do not love him. So whereas, again, we have a mitzvah to love every Jew, this person we do not have a mitzvah to love. In the words of Sifri, since it is written, you must love your neighbors yourself, one might imply that you would even love the Macy's. The verse therefore says, do not love him. So there's, again, although we're training ourselves to love everyone, and it would be, because we've been training ourselves to that, it would be natural to feel that way towards this person. But in this case, you are not allowed to love him. And that means, again, that though, what does it mean to love another person? It means to treat him as you would want to be treated, to extend yourself on his or her behalf, and again, all manner of other details on how to treat somebody that you love. None of those are meant to apply to this person. The thing is, when are they this person? Are they this person only once they've been convicted of it? Are they this person once you see them doing this behavior? Like, let's say you as an individual saw this person acting as a missionary. Does it kick in immediately? Is it something that only happens once they've been convicted of this crime? That's interesting. In footnote number 1, so it's forbidden to love the Macy's or agree with him. So they have in their footnotes, the Arabic dun can also be translated as pay attention, listen to, or be convinced by. Interesting. Okay. The 18th prohibition is that we are forbidden from easing our hatred of the Macy's. One is absolutely required to maintain this hatred. If one does not do, one transgresses a prohibition. The source of this commandment is God's statement, and do not listen to him. The explanation of this, since it is written, you must make every effort to help him, one might imply that you must make, and this is talking about another Jew. So let's say you feel hate towards another Jew. So you're supposed to try to mitigate that hate. For instance, let's say they're in trouble. You're supposed to go out of your way to help them. If their animal is burdened and you see them on the side of the road, you're supposed to go and help them. Anytime you see them in a difficult situation, you're supposed to help them in order to lessen your hatred for somebody else. But this is not the case with a missionary. The verse therefore says, and do not listen to him. Okay. I mean, I have come across missionaries, and I remember in particular when I was, before I made Aliyah, so for the first like 5 or 6 years I was in Israel, I was a student. and then I made Aliyah. So as a student, every year you have to renew your visa. You're supposed to get a student visa. So the place you go to is Ministry of Interior. And Ministry of Interior was notorious for the wait time. So you'd show up. It was sort of like going to the DMV. It had that same kind of look to it. So there'd be a general seating area where people sat once you were given a number, and then you'd wait to be called. And it often took 4 hours for you to be called. So you'd be sitting in this waiting area, and after a while, you'd strike up a conversation with the people sitting near you. So I noticed during one of the first years I was doing this that there were missionaries that specifically went to this area to strike up conversations with Jews and try to develop a relationship with them so that they could get them to come to programming. So after that, for the last couple of years that I was doing this, I would be on the lookout because it struck me that this was like a regular gig for some of these missionaries. Remember one time sitting next to a guy who was talking to a girl from Hebrew U, an American girl who was studying at Hebrew U. And I just listened for about 45 minutes as he was slowly building to the point where he would start to talk to her about Jesus. And when he first did, I just interrupted and I said, "Excuse me, are you a missionary?" And he was already prepared with something. And he said, why does this bother you? He said, instead of worrying about the people here, you should be teaching other Jews about Judaism and about God. And I don't know, I was so furious. And I went up to one of the people that was working there and I said, you do realize that there are like missionaries here every day that are taking advantage of the fact that there's such a long wait time here. And he goes, where? Show me a missionary. And I pointed to the guy, but there's nothing he could do. They had no way of barring people from schmoozing with the people there. But it just angered me so much. And I'm not sure in the end, because I thought about what he said, and I'm not sure, where the anger would have been best placed. Obviously, he's taking advantage of the fact that there are many Jews who are not learned about their faith or naive about their faith, and so on the one hand, it's appropriate to be upset with him, but on the other hand, he has a point that if there are Jews that are susceptible to the ploys of a missionary, a lot of that is on us, that we're not educated enough and we're not educating people enough. I don't know. Anyways, technically this is talking about missionaries for idolatry. And there are a lot of halakhic authorities who do consider Christianity to be idolatry. There are those who do not. But when we encounter missionaries, we are typically encountering missionaries to Christianity. For much of the last couple centuries, when people want to identify groups that are for sure idolaters, they will mention people from India who practice Hinduism, and certainly we had a kind of explosion of Indian groups that were attracting Jewish followers in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. I don't know to what extent it continues to happen now, but those groups, especially the groups that are known to actively proselytize and try to attract members, those would classically fill the definition of missionaries to idolatry. But I think most halachic authorities today would also consider Christian missionaries to fit this prohibition. That I did know a guy. He was quite an interesting guy who he would find missionaries and befriend them for the purpose of getting them to stop missionizing. And he claims to have had success. He lived in my neighborhood, and every once in a while you'd see one of these missionaries spending Shabbos in my neighborhood in Israel. And it was quite a funny thing, because here you have somebody who's a dedicated missionary who finds himself in a community of people who are so different from the people that he is targeting, and yet they are Jews, but Jews in this case that are confident that if he spends time with them, he's going to stop doing what he does. I don't know if there's any evidence of the success of this method. I don't know how the people who practice this method do it with mitzvah number 17 and 18, which says you're not allowed to show love to these people, and you are not supposed to mitigate your hatred towards them. So I don't know. I guess if somebody could prove that the method works, they could argue that they're not motivated by love for the missionary, but that they are just being pragmatic about stopping the progress of the missionary. There are organizations that are devoted to this. There's an organization called Pe'ilim Yad La'achim. There are people who have a following. There's what's his name, Rabbi? Of course, I don't know his name right now. But anyways, there are these figures that have a reputation for combating missionaries. They have all sorts of materials available to help people protect themselves from the arguments of missionaries. And there's a group called Jews for Judaism. That's out of Canada, but there's this guy in Israel who has a wide following on YouTube, whose name I'll remember in a minute or two. But I every once in a while I come across them because I take those pastors' trips to Israel. On the pastors' trips, they are warned that you cannot do missionizing in Israel and or missionizing on the trip. And for the most part, they've been good about that. Every once in a while, you'll see somebody sort of step out of line within the group. In other words, like towards me. But they are, I've seen it happen, and then I've seen them be called aside and rebuked for doing it. And there's a pastor that's come on many of the trips that I've gone on. His name is Harry Schmidt, who one of his jobs is keeping the pastors in line to make sure that there's no missionizing that goes on the trip when we're there. Okay. The 19th prohibition is that one whom the Macy's tried to incite is forbidden from saving the Macy's if he sees his life in danger. Now, technically, this would mean if you were swimming and you happen to see that he was drowning, that you are not allowed to save him. The practical, I don't know if this is practically meant to be followed nowadays, because we have other considerations, one of which we spend time on, which is the prevention of Ava, which is hatred amongst the Gentiles. And if it was known that somebody did not save the life of somebody like a missionary to idolatry, then it could be that would spread Ava, would spread hatred against the Jews and lead to danger against the Jews. So I'm not sure if this how this would practically apply nowadays.
Rabbi
if
Karsh,
it practically applies. Yeah.
Aren't we talking about a Jew who's doing this?
Typically we are talking about a Jew who is doing this. Yes.
I mean, we don't have to harbor hatred for more than is necessary for a non-Jew who's doing it.
You
but
might. You might,
Oh.
if he's trying to talk a Jew into idolatry, then that's an excellent point. Let's just, this is talking about a Jew, right?
Yeah, because in this
talking
case, you wouldn't be causing hatred from Goyim if you don't save a Jew.
Right,
from
you're right.
drowning.
My mind was on Gentiles, and this is really talking about a Jew. So I'm glad you pointed that out. I'm gonna do a quick search here for a second before I see if we should look at this. So you may not see me while I'm doing this search. I don't know. Halacha. I'm glad you corrected that, because that is correct. There is a separate prohibition. I can see I don't have the right search parameters here for this. There is a separate prohibition against showing favor to Gentiles that we saw this. We're going to see this in the list of commandments. Everybody agrees it applies to idolaters. So and in that list of the prohibition is you're not supposed to show favor to them. So this may apply to any idolater, whether they're a missionary or not. It seems to. So it may not matter if they're if they're a Gentile idolater, it may not matter if they're missionizing or not, this law might apply to them. So we'll have to see when we get to that prohibition of lo techanim, whether that would include any Gentile idolater. Again, when we talked about this, we saw this in connection to more than one of our mitzvot on the positive side. And I mentioned to you that this is, it's got a lot of different pieces to it, but in general, you're not allowed to show favor to an idolater. So then again, depends on who's called an idolater and what is called showing favor. But this issue of saving them when they're drowning is one of the issues that comes up. So it may not make a difference halachically whether the person, from this perspective, whether the person is a missionary or not, if they're not Jewish. Again, we do save their lives nowadays because of Ava, of the fact that it would lead to hatred. But they're complex halachos, and they require, somebody with big shoulders to be able to tell you how this applies in in a practical everyday situation. Again, who it applies to and what circumstances it would apply. Yeah. All right. The 20th prohibition is that one who the maces, this is again the missionary, tried to incite, is forbidden from trying to acquit the maces. Even if he knows of an argument in his favor, he is forbidden to mention it to him or to raise it himself. The source of this commandment is God's statement, do not show any mercy. Ibid. It's all in that series of law. The explanation of this is brought in the verse, do not show him any mercy, means that you may not raise an argument in his favor. Again, I'm not sure how this applies. I'm assuming that we're talking about in a trial. Obviously, if you're a judge in the trial, you're supposed to find arguments for innocence. But so who this is speaking to specifically, the way it's written, it sounds like if you're a member of the public and you've come up with a learned argument that could be used by this person, you're not supposed to present it. I don't know what this looks like in real life. Who, again, let's say the person has an argument that would exonerate this person because it would show that they are not, in fact, a Macy's. They're not a missionary. So it's hard to believe that that's included in this. Sorry about that. Because then this person isn't, if you have arguments that would exonerate the person to the point where we would say he's not in fact a missionary, it's impossible to believe that cannot be brought up. So it must mean something that would mitigate them or be an argument for mercy, even though we're convinced that they in fact are a missionary. Yeah.
Are you forbidden, even on the other side, to argue with the guy yourself?
There are people that do it, like that guy whose name I still can't remember. But he's he's quite famous for doing that, where he'll go out and debate them. I'm certain that the reason that this guy is doing it is, when he does it, is to demonstrate to other Jews that their arguments have holes in them, not necessarily for the person themselves. Because it seems from here, from the previous prohibitions, that you're not supposed to try to reform this guy. If you're trying to reform this guy so that he, would do tshuva, that would be an act of love towards this person or towards Hashem. And it seems like you're not supposed to think in those terms with a Jewish missionary. So the ones who end up debating them, and my understanding is that the reason they're doing it is for the benefit of other Jews, either other Jews who are there watching while they're doing it in person, or if they're videotaping it for other Jews that might watch this. I do know I have a cousin who became a Christian. He married a Christian woman and became a fervent Christian. And then he started to have doubts. He reached out to my father originally because he was starting to have doubts and wanted to learn Tanakh from a Jewish perspective. And my father was really patient with him. And I would get like CC'd on stuff, but it was mostly my father that was interacting with him. And we even have a letter from him where he finally, he credits my father with helping him sort of get back to the Jewish perspective and Jewish faith. But he also watched this video, this guy, gosh, his name is right on the tip of my brain. And he also watched, he was in touch with the guys from Jews for Judaism. So like watching that stuff was hugely important for him, a Jewish guy who had gotten involved in Christianity. Just seeing somebody who was able to respond to Christian theological points that attack Judaism, the fact that he was able to deftly and resoundingly respond to these points by Christian missionaries was very, very important to him. And I know, I know some people who converted from Christianity to Judaism that refer to them as important sources on their path to Judaism. Now, even though Judaism is not a missionary religion and doesn't feel like Christians need, that Gentiles need to become Jewish, but if there are mistaken theologies that would be considered idolatry or idolatrous, then it is a mitzvah, to try to turn the person away from idolatry, or I don't know if it's a mitzvah, but it's you would think a great achievement to turn somebody away from idolatry. It seems like that's what Avram Avinu did, or at least that's what he's credited to doing in the Midrash. And so it seems like it's important. Even Chabad has as one of its pillars of outreach, teaching the Noahide laws and the perspective of the Noahide to Gentiles, it would seem that this is the primary purpose, which is to teach people how to be Noahides as opposed to idolaters. So these people that are debating with them would be providing at least those two services. Again, I don't see what, especially in light of the mitzvahs that we're looking at, I don't see a direct reason to do it for just to defeat an idolater. For the purpose of defeating an idolater, I don't know if there's a value in that, but there would be the Kiddush Hashem, the sanctification of God's name, that would happen if other Jews were able to find out about it, or maybe even Gentiles who were idolaters who were convinced then to let go of their idolatry. You see people in the Gemara doing, you see Tanaim doing, you see Rabbi Yoshua, the Tana, was noted for his debates and arguments, but just for the sake of debating them, I don't, if let's say nobody would find out, nobody else would ever hear what the answers were, it was just a Jew and an idolater, I don't know what the value would be in debating them. The minute we stop learning together, I'm sure I'm going to remember that guy's name.
You can text us or something.
Okay.
This not, for being forbidden to love a Jew who does this, is this absolutely singular? Because anything else that I know, you could put people in harem but you never could stop loving another Jew for any sin. Is that right? This is like
right.
singular.
Let's say they become a full-blown idolater, and they're, even if they're not a missionary, I'm not sure in that scenario. But certainly it seems singular. And look how many of the mitzvahs are devoted to this one person. It's really, it seems unprecedented. But I agree. It's so hard to read it when it says that you're not allowed to love this person. It seems almost, it's so against intuition.
Rabbi, I was listening to Rabbi Breitowitz this morning, and he was a talk about Tisha B'Av and everything, but he told a story, and he wouldn't say the name of the rabbi at all. He said he had heard this. He couldn't believe it, that the rabbi was in a yeshiva boy asked this particular rabbi, shouldn't we feel some pain for our, for the IDF people, for the people who are fighting? And the rabbi said to him, why should we feel pain for them? They're not like us. They don't believe what we believe. And Breitowitz said he couldn't believe it, but he heard it, and it's so horrible to think that a rabbi could say that.
It's sickening. It sickens me. It sickens me. When we're talking about what work is there to do, what are we supposed to be motivated to do? Obviously, Tisha B'Av is devoted to the mourning. It's not necessarily an activist day. It's a day where we sit in mourning. But as you're coming out of the mourning and you're looking forward to the redemption and asking ourselves, what can we do? The singular thing that comes to mind is that we can work to overcome the unwarranted hatred of Jew towards Jew.
Right, given the fact that that's what the destruction of the Second Temple was.
100%. And that sounds like That's what that is. It's sickening to hear it. Sickening. Okay. As we enter into the preparation for Tisha B'Av and then Tisha B'Av, I wish you a meaningful Tisha B'Av, and the last Tisha B'Av. This should be the last Tisha B'Av that we spend in mourning, and all the things we mourn for, Hashem should heal them, and we should help the healing.
Baruch to, yeah. Actually, Rabbi Breidowitz even said maybe we won't even get to this Tisha B'Av, and might, in other
Yeah,
words,
who knows?
we might
Who knows?
come beforehand.
There's still
Okay, I
time.
hope that's
There's
the case.
still time. There's
I
still
hope
time.
that's the case.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
So
very.
Wednesday we're
Rabbi.
on. Wednesday we're on.
Wednesday we are on. We are not on tomorrow, but Wednesday we are on. Thank
Okay.
you guys. Everybody be well.
You too,
Thank you,
Rabbi.
Rabbi.
All right. Bye.